So welcome, folks, to this wonderful evening we have planned. Thank you for tuning in. My name is George Albro. I'm a co-chair, one of three co-chairs statewide for NIPAN. We have an exciting and important event tonight with great speakers. This presentation is being co-hosted by NIPAN and our chapter, which is on the east end of Long Island PEER, which stands for Progressive East Enders for Reform. We have also a whole bunch of co-sponsors. You probably saw that in the chat at the beginning, and we'll show it to you at the end. We also, this event is being broadcast simultaneously on WBAI, and both the audio recording and a video recording is being made and will be available. So for those of you who may not know what NIPAN is, let me just state that we came out of the Bernie Sanders movement in 2016, and we had the necessity of getting Bernie on the ballot then, and all the spontaneous groups that sprung up throughout the state got together, and we filed 80,000 signatures of a petition to get him and all the delegates on the ballot. And we elected over 100 delegates to go to Philadelphia for the convention. And we decided to stay together after that convention and to fight for the agenda that Bernie was campaigning on nationally, to fight within New York State. And so we got involved and are still involved in many struggles, including trying to pass the New York Health Act, which would be New York's version of Medicare for all, affordable housing like good cause eviction, which I hear may be on the verge of passing or some form of that, and progressive taxation and other struggles. But we realized very early that none of this was possible unless we had a functioning democracy. You recall maybe at that time, New York had the worst election laws in the country. There was also a group of traitors to the Democratic Party called the IDC, which was preventing the majority from having control of the state Senate. So we got involved in pushing and being part of a coalition to push for things and winning things like early voting, easier access to registration and changing registration and the like. And we're very proud of that work. We also sued the Cuomo administration 4 years ago when they tried to cancel the presidential primary in New York State. And we sued them in federal court and won both in the trial court and on appeal. And if you may have noticed, they didn't try and cancel the one a couple of weeks ago or last week. Our focus, again, was on democracy. We have now, as a lot of you know, a real challenge to democracy in the United States in the form of the possibility of Trump becoming president again. However, that challenge is widely known by millions of people, and millions of people are getting involved in trying to head off. That's a real threat. But there's another threat. That threat happens to be directed by a group called AIPAC, which is trying to purge progressives that we helped elect, all of us together, in Congress and in state legislature, purging them out because they don't agree with the policies of the Netanyahu government in Israel. That threat is right on us now, and they are threatening to defeat the members of the squad, progressives, people of principle in Congress. We are not going to let that happen. So we are dedicating our organization, being part of a coalition, to make sure that their targets, two of which are going to be with us tonight, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Congressman Jamaal Bowman. They will be with us tonight. We also have a very distinguished panel, which will talk about the threat that AIPAC is presenting and how they act. So we will all learn a lot tonight, and that is necessary, but it's not sufficient. If we just go home, or actually we're all home, but if we just do nothing, then we stand to lose. So at the end of this panel and these presentations, we're going to have some activities that everyone could get involved in fighting AIPAC and making sure they did not succeed in basically trashing our democracy. So with that said, I want to get right into our program, and I want to introduce another co-host of NIPAN, Nancy DeDelva, who will introduce our first speaker. Nancy?
Good evening. Welcome to our forum. We have to give our guest a couple more minutes because she's not waiting yet. Ching, have you seen? Is she in?
No, she's not.
She's not in.
She's here.
She's in?
Yeah.
Oh,
Ting,
really?
check the chat.
Perfect timing.
Okay. Our guest practically needs no introduction. She's been with NIPAN since the beginning because we had a lot to do with getting her participating in her first campaign to get her elected. So without having to, wait a minute, they want me to look at the chat. Without having to wait too long, let us see, where is she? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and there she is. This is our guest, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She will speak, and something's wrong with my computer or your computer because I don't see her.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear?
Okay. Yes, we can hear you.
Interesting. I don't think I have video permission, so I think that's probably why you may not see me.
Yeah, if you put your view, click on view and put gallery view and not speaker view because you can't see Alex.
I just promoted you to panelist.
Okay, here we go. Now they're like, okay.
Okay.
It's working. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you all so much. Hello, NIPAN. As always, it's so wonderful to be able to connect with you all and to engage with you all, especially on tonight's topic, which is so incredibly important, which is tackling and taking on AIPAC. This is the cycle where I think we are seeing this confrontation with AIPAC happen head on for the first time. Everybody, this is a bare knuckle fight that we're going to be having this cycle. It is long past due, and we should relish it because for so long, the scepter and the fear of standing up for Palestinian human rights and standing up and actually fighting for a sustainable and lasting peace has been this like third rail in American politics. And I can tell you as a member of the House, how often there's been vote after vote where I see members on the House floor even say that they know that this isn't right. They know that this is imbalanced, that it's wrong, that there's absolutely no conditions, particularly for human rights, when it comes to military assistance going from the United States to Israel. And they know themselves, but they a lot of times will vote for it anyway because they feel like AIPAC will primary them out of office and that they will not be able to fight for healthcare or any other issues because the strength of this lobby and the strength of this organization is so strong. And this is the cycle where we've decided between the absolute indiscriminate attacks and an unfolding genocide in Gaza that we are standing up and saying enough. And we are going to stand up and from day one have called for a ceasefire in the region, since day one have advocated for the human rights of Palestinians. And from day one, they have put a target on our back. And we took these stances not for any even political reason, but for a moral reason, because it's the right thing to do. And we know that a lasting peace for anybody in the region, Israeli or Palestinian, is completely unsustainable so long as Palestinians are dehumanized and their human rights not respected. And so what that means is that this year, AIPAC is coming to New York State in a way that they have never come before. Sometimes they work as a special interest organization, but here they are seeking to divide our state and unleash some of the ugliest and most racist attacks that they can potentially unleash into the state of New York. And we know that they're going to do this because not only have they already started, but they've run this playbook in other states and other places before. They came out and they saw former Congressman Andy Levin really speak up with courage, and they worked to try to oust him in a primary in Michigan last cycle. But this is important in this moment because we are going to stop them in their tracks right here in the state of New York. They have already launched primary challenges against Summer Lee, against Jamaal Bowman. I now have a primary challenge. Ilhan Omar has a primary challenge, and Cori Bush all have primary challenges. And I want to be very clear that AIPAC, which stands for the American Israel Political Action Committee, I believe I'm getting that right, is not representative or in alignment with the views of the vast majority of Americans, of Democrats, and frankly, increasingly, and especially generationally, many in the Jewish community either. They seek to artificially conflate some of the most conservative and war hawkish stances and some of the most pro-Netanyahu stances and conflate it with bad faith accusations that criticisms of the Netanyahu administration, criticisms of how Gazans are treated are somehow equal to anti-Semitism. And we know that that is not true because so many of us that you'll hear even tonight from the Jewish community in activism understand that a commitment to human rights has nothing to do with that. And so we must stand up undeterred, but we need to understand how serious this threat is. Jamaal Bowman has a very serious primary challenge that is largely financed by AIPAC, millions of dollars, and the first quarter alone, over, I believe, about half of the contributions came from AIPAC in his first quarter, and they just released second quarter, where they are raising significant resources. They are financed by Republicans. They endorse Republicans who supported the January 6th attacks. And it's so important to understand that the threats to democracy, both that Netanyahu represents in Israel and also that Donald Trump represents in the United States, are both being supported by many of the individuals who financially support AIPAC as well. This is a question of democracy. This is a question of making sure that New York State is not torn up by the racist attacks that AIPAC engages in. And I want to be very clear here that I know that my goal, and I know all of our goal, should not be just to survive this primary challenge. Our goal should be to stomp these primary challenges, because what we are here to do is to demonstrate that not only can you survive standing up to AIPAC, but that the American people and the Democratic Party will have our back, because once that happens, if we win and when we win by 10, 20, 30 points, What we tell the rest of the Congress is that this lobby is not something to be afraid of, that we are in alignment with the views of the vast majority of Americans who are sick of watching their taxpayer resources being used to violate human rights, to support settlements, to make sure that that these resources are being used in a way that are not in alignment with any of what we support. And so it's really important that we sign up for canvassing shifts for Jamaal Bowman, especially, that we hit the phones, that we're text banking, that we're donating, that we're marshaling resources, because once that happens, it's going to be a watershed moment. Summer Lee has her primary in just a few weeks, and we're making sure to send support there as well. But she's already, and the organizing that's happening there is already starting to rally around, and it's creating a real change in the calculus here. For the first time in modern American politics, conditioning aid to Israel is becoming a mainstream conversation right here in Washington, D.C. That has never happened before. And it's happening because of the support and activism and organizing of people like you. And so once Summer wins her primary, once Jamaal wins his primary, once the rest of us win our primaries, not by a little bit, but by making sure that we win big, we have to demonstrate that this position is not politically risky at all, actually, that it's a mainstream position that represents the majority of Americans. And so with that, I cannot thank NIPAN enough for being on the front lines of this fight, as well as many of our panelists that we have here today. I see Linda Sarsour has joined. I see we've got Beth Miller from Jewish Voices for Peace. This is movement making. This is the work of movement making. And this is how we're going to not just win on this issue, but make sure that we preserve our democracy, because we cannot afford to lose the House. 6 swing seats go through the state of New York, and we have to maintain and keep the Democratic coalition together. And we cannot afford to lose any piece of our coalition, so that we can mobilize our electorate and make sure that we win back the House and certify the results of a presidential election, hopefully, which will not include the election of Donald Trump as the president of the United States. So with that, I hand it off to you. Thank you so much, Nancy.
Thank you.
Well, that was inspiring, not unusually for Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez. I feel like going canvassing and forgetting about the rest of the discussion, but the rest of the discussion with these extraordinary women who are joining us is going to be very inspiring too. My name is Catherine Levy. I'm a member of the Executive Committee of NIPAN. I'm also a member of the Core Committee of Progressive East End Reformers, one of NIPAN's 2 Long Island chapters. And I'm very excited about our panel. I have to say that I've admired these 3 women from afar for a long time, and I'm very happy to be sitting here asking them questions and admiring them some more. In order to save some time, I'm going to introduce all of the panelists in the order that they'll speak, and then we'll get to our discussion. Beth Miller is the political director of Jewish Voice for Peace and JVP Action. She has been an activist in the movement for Palestinian rights for over a decade, focusing specifically on congressional advocacy. She was previously the U.S. Advocacy Officer for Defense for Children International Palestine, where she co-led the nationwide No Way to Treat a Child campaign. She lives in Brooklyn. The Honorable Nina Turner is the founder of We Are Somebody, a capacity building organization for the working class. She is a hell-raising humanitarian, thought leader, and senior fellow at the New School Institute on Race, Power, and Political Economy. She served on Senator Bernie Sanders' presidential campaigns as national surrogate in 2016 and national co-chair in 2020. A former Ohio State Senator, she continues to fight tirelessly to advance policy that improves the material conditions of working people across the United States, and also has taken that message abroad to the United Kingdom. Linda Sarsour is an award-winning civil rights activist, community organizer, and mother of 3. She is a Palestinian Muslim American born and raised in Brooklyn. She is the co-founder of the first Muslim online and offline organizing platform, Empower Change, and co-founder of Until Freedom. Linda was one of the national co-chairs of the largest single-day protest in US history, the Women's March on Washington. She's the author of We Are Not Here to Be Bystanders, a memoir of love and resistance. I love that title. And We're in This Together, a young reader edition. So what we're going to do initially is do a deep dive into some of the things that Congressman Ocasio-Cortez talked about, and the political director of Jewish Voice for Peace Action is the perfect person to start that discussion. So Beth, can you give us a brief overview of what AIPAC is, their goals, and how their influence has grown over the years?
Yeah, thanks so much for that introduction, Catherine and NIPAN, for hosting this. And it is such an honor to be a part of this panel with these two incredible powerhouse organizer activist women that I've been admiring for years. And Eid Mubarak to anyone who is on this call who's celebrating tonight. And honored to be here. So thank you again for inviting me to be a part of this. I am happy to talk about why AIPAC is toxic and why everything we just heard from Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez about how this is the moment to take them down is exactly right. So you asked a little bit about kind of an overview of AIPAC. And one thing I want to start with is that this is a very aptly named event because AIPAC is toxic in a lot of different ways. First and foremost, AIPAC is toxic because of the policies that they have been pushing for decades. Since their inception, their goal, their mission was to ensure unquestioning, unflinching US support and complicity in the Israeli government's apartheid rule and human rights violations against Palestinians. That has always been their goal for decades. They're also now becoming toxic in a new way. They are becoming politically toxic to Democrats. And that's because of what we just heard from Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, because the Democratic voter base has become increasingly educated and increasingly aware of what is actually happening in Palestine and is refusing to support or allow for our money to continue being used in the ways that AIPAC wants it to be used. So it's been recent. It's really been over the last several years that AIPAC has started to become more of a household name, right? Like more broadly understood by the kind of American public. And it's still not fully, but more and more people have started to become aware of that. And that happened because of their entrance into the electoral world. But they have been operating for decades in a way that has been warmongering and hawkish and pushing for horrible, racist US foreign policy. AIPAC has always actually been a fairly extremist organization in terms of the content of the policies that they are pushing. They have always been pushing for arming the Israeli government and supporting Israel's human rights violations. As the Israeli government has moved further and further to the right and has exposed the oppressive nature of what has long been there for decades, that has meant that AIPAC is also moving further and further to the right because they are increasingly pushing for and supporting these extremist and blatant policies of oppression. AIPAC has also operated for decades, for a very long time, in a way that is domestically bullying and kind of a scorched earth policy to how it does its lobbying work. So AIPAC here domestically has buddied up with famous Islamophobes. They have pushed Islamophobic racist rhetoric, and they have attacked in particular women of color and Muslim women of color in incredibly horrifying racist ways. In fact, some of the rhetoric that AIPAC has been pushing for years once got to the point that Congresswoman Betty McCollum called them a hate group. And that was years ago, before we are in the moment we are in now. So AIPAC has been this kind of extremist, bullying, racist organization for a very, very long time. Above all else, what they want to do is push forward unconditional US military funding to the Israeli government. So for folks on this call who may not already know, even before October, the US was sending $3.8 billion to the Israeli government every single year, all in military funds. And that was all unconditional. There were not human rights conditions or rules put onto how the Israeli military could use that money. And someone mentioned this in the chat before. It's important that we all remember that this isn't just about this moment with Netanyahu, right? For years, the Israeli government has been using our tax dollars, has been using the weapons we send them to uphold an apartheid system and to kill and oppress and be violent toward Palestinians in the West Bank, in East Jerusalem, in Gaza. This is not new. And since October, where we have now over the last 6 months seen an unfolding genocide carried out by the Israeli government, where they have killed over 33,000 Palestinians in 6 months and wreaked unimaginable, devastating catastrophe, where we now have a man-made famine that's starting to set in Gaza. AIPAC has been behind the Israeli government every single step of the way. Not only that, but whenever a single member of Congress dares to even have a whiff of a thought of holding the Israeli government accountable for how it acts, AIPAC has gone on the attack. They have said that they are anti-Semitic, which is a horrific smear that was one of AIPAC's favorite attack lines, where they have conflated American Jewish communities and Jewish communities around the world with the Israeli government, which is a false conflation. And they have put them on a target list for who they want to kick out of office. So AIPAC, basically, their approach has been, if you are not in full and complete lockstep with what the Israeli government is doing and saying and calling for, then you are out of line and we are going to attack you. However, like I said before, like we heard from the Congresswoman before, this isn't working so great for them anymore, because it used to be that they could do this in a way that was kind of bipartisan. It used to be that in Washington, D.C., there was this kind of broad consensus that, yeah, the knee-jerk reaction should just be stand with Israel no matter what. Don't question it. That is no longer the case. That is breaking apart, that is cracking. And we have more and more Democrats in particular who are speaking out and starting to call for conditions, for suspensions of weapons, and to hold the Israeli government accountable and end US complicity in this genocide, in these human rights violations. And what that's meant is that AIPAC is increasingly siding with more and more and more extremist Republican positions. And we'll get into this later in the panel, I'm sure, about how they operate electorally as well in that way. But what we're seeing now in this moment, where so much has just been exposed, is that the same people who are in AIPAC and supporting AIPAC and pushing for AIPAC's policies are also pushing for the most far-right extremist positions in Israel as well. We're seeing a pairing up of the right wing here and the right wing there. And it's all happening. And the thing that I'll close with, though, is that the reason that this kind of break, that this extremism is coming out in this moment, is because our movements are having a real impact. The organizing that Palestinian communities have been leading in this country for decades, the organizing that the broader Palestinian rights movement has been leading, which includes Jewish communities, which AIPAC would love us to ignore and pretend is not true, have shifted the conversation and have gotten us to a point where there is more of a mainstream understanding that our tax dollars should not be used to support human rights violations, to support genocide. And because of that, AIPAC is losing its grip and starting to feel like it needs to fight harder, spend more money, be even more extremist in its rhetoric. And so that is kind of the very overview of kind of who they've been, how they operate, and where we've got to now at this point with them.
Thank you. Having heard you on other panels, I knew you would do a great overview, so thank you very much. Nina, the overview is one thing, but the lived experience of 2 congressional campaigns when they were targeting you, for those of us who were supporting your campaigns and looking on from New York, it was a painful experience, but it must have been more painful for you on the ground. Do you want to talk about that experience of being in those 2 campaigns targeted by AIPAC?
Thanks, Catherine, and many thanks to NIPAN and all the other affiliate groups that help support this. Beth, really thank you for that wonderful, wonderful overview. it really just reminds me that when I served in the Ohio Senate, because on the legislative level, you don't deal with foreign affairs, I barely knew AIPAC existed. So to a point that Sister Beth put out there, that if somebody like me kind of just superficially knew AIPAC existed, what do you think about the average voter in this country that is now being educated, not only about AIPAC, but AIPAC affiliate organizations like DMFI, Democratic Majority for Israel, and other tentacles that might not even have Israel anywhere in its name, but they are affiliate groups to tear down progressive type candidates. So to Catherine's question, the lived experience is something else. And so as a state senator, some of the very people that I work side by side with to do things for my city, the city of Cleveland, and other suburban communities in my district, who were Zionists, never came after me. But when I ran for Congress, they came after me, and they came after me hard. And I think I shared with George, it was like walking down the street and just being punched in the face for no reason at all. That's how that felt. And I kept asking myself, how did I get here? Well, the reason why I was there is because the fact that I have always believed that Palestinian rights and the rights of Israelis go hand in hand, that security must go together, that one set of people can't have it if the other set doesn't have it. And because I was running for Congress and no longer dealing with local issues, I was a Cleveland City Councilwoman, never had a problem. And my district, my Senate district, has the largest Jewish population in the state of Ohio. So I want you to, not majority, but the largest in the state of Ohio, meaning the Black community and other communities of color are the majority, but my Senate district has the largest in the state of Ohio. So I want folks to understand that I serve this population just like I served every other group. And so to be punched in the face and knocked to the ground in this way. So I remember, being asked questions by some of the Jewish media outlets, how did I feel about Palestinian rights? And I'm Nina Turner. I'm a hell-raising humanitarian. What do you mean, how do I feel about it? I feel about Palestinian rights the way I feel about anybody else's rights, that people have a right to live a good life. And that government, whether it's the government over here or the government over there, should be facilitating that good life. But that was a bridge too far. Next thing I know, I'm being attacked. I mean, I absolutely could not believe it. And my sister Linda Sarsour is on this panel too, has been with me, every step of the way. It was just unbelievable. And to much to my chagrin, I didn't know that this type of hatred or disdain for me was bubbling up from the moment that I supported Senator Bernard Sanders. George knows there was a two-pronged approach, and I need my sisters and brothers, family and friends and frenemies on this to understand what they did in my district compared to what they did with certain pockets of the Jewish population. Because make no mistake, Sister Turner has Jewish people who supported my run, who was right there by my side every step of the way, Arab Americans and Muslim people, just people from all walks of life. So I want to put that in the parking lot. Two-pronged attack on me. So one attack was to the Zionist population, where they sent out wholesale emails across the country calling me an anti-Semite. I've never said one anti-Semitic thing in my life because I'm a humanitarian, baby. Never have I. But all of a sudden I'm an anti-Semite. And because I had Jewish supporters who happened to be on those email lists, they sent me the email list, whole list of people. Their emails weren't even covered that I have right now to this day. Some of those people right in the city of Cleveland got this started. People who I worked with now, mind you, in the legislature. I was the person then, but all of a sudden I get asked the question about Palestinian rights and I'm no longer the person. So that's one. So even within that network, I had business leaders call me who are Republican, but in Cleveland, because I was so beloved and in my district, we worked together on various issues. All of a sudden, I'm enemy number one. I remember getting a call from a Republican businessman, a Zionist, which at the time, sisters and brothers, I didn't even know he was a Zionist. Did not know because we worked together. He called me up. He said, Nina, I'm getting calls about you and emails that are being sent out and you're going to be in the squad and the squad is anti-Semitic. They hate Jewish people. And I'm thinking, wow, dude, somebody I work with all this time, you laying this all on me. The bottom line, he said to me, you must disavow the squad. and that Palestinians have no rights that Israel must recognize. I was stunned. And I'm telling you something. I heard the words of my deceased grandmother speak in my mind and said, Nina, act like you got some sense. And because this person was an elder, he didn't get cussed out, because that was going to be the first thing. First of all, I am a Black grown woman and I have agency, and I need that agency to be recognized. That's number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. You're going to call me up and chastise me over something that is a beautiful thing in terms of recognizing everybody's humanity, then you're going to tell me what I must do. And I said, you know what? Do what you got to do. He said to me, we're going to come at you with everything that we got. And that is exactly what they did. So I need the folks on this call to understand that the template, the roadmap for defeating progressives in the way that AIPAC and DMFI and other affiliated pro-Israel against every other thing affiliated groups operate, it started with Ohio 11th. That is how they built it. You can go back and look at articles and you will hear the leader of DMFI say it out in the open, that we created a template to come after progressives in Ohio 11th. Another point that I need folks to be crystal clear, and I'm glad Sister Beth laid it out. AIPAC is a racist group, and in particular, anti-Black. I'm about to lay this down for you. And it doesn't matter that on the other end of the race, it was 11 people in the race, but it was only 2 people who were really going neck and neck, and that's the current person in the office right now. It doesn't matter that another Black person was willing to sell out their own district for AIPAC and DMFI and other affiliated groups. I want you to understand this. They are anti-Black. The majority of the voters who voted, particularly in that special election that happened in 2021, if you look at the demographics, the city of Cleveland was solidly with me, and the city of Cleveland is a majority Black district. I won Akron too, which was drawn into the district. The reason why I need to make this point, I need people to understand this, that if any group, be it AIPAC, DMFI, the NRA, you name any toxic dark money group that gets the opportunity to come into a community and decide who the head person is going to be in charge, they take away the agency of other groups in that district to be able to make a decision. And that is why, one of the reasons why we must sound the alarm. The way that they're coming at. Now, if they were coming at people who were not Black and other people of color the way that they are coming at. But the reason why this is so insidious, it is because the majority of the attacks coming from groups like that are against Black people and other people of color. And it takes away that right, that hard fought, I have a right to decide who will lead me. Historically, the pain points of Black people. And I tell you, even when I met with these folks, I didn't meet with AIPAC folks, but I met with some of the more corporate types in the Jewish community in Greater Cleveland. Because again, I could not believe this was happening to me, Sister Linda. I mean, I just could not believe it. And my team thought the best way to try to quell this is to go and have these conversations. As I look back on this, I will never again, because it was humiliating to have to go and try to convince people that I'm not a damn anti-Semite when they know good and well that I'm not. They use some of the most racist anti-Black tropes against me in the district. And then behind the scenes to Zionist Jews, they called me anti-Semitic. And so you think about the crushing points of AIPAC and DMFI and affiliated organizations. Then you look at Democratic groups. Hello, somebody. The Democratic groups that came in as well. Hakeem Jeffries ran one of those groups. See, it's not enough that Hakeem Jeffries has now claimed that the Black Caucus is supporting, Congresswoman Summer Lee or Congresswoman Cori Bush. It is not enough, because see, they talking that talk, but they not picking up the phone and making a demand and telling AIPAC, stand down. What you will not do is take out Black people. See, that's what we need them to do. You know why they can't say that? Because they bought and sold. They are grifters. So I'm going to be very clear. Every single politician, from the president of the United States right now on down to the Congress, who is taking money from AIPAC, DMFI, or other hate affiliated groups that put a foreign country above the needs of the people in the United States of America. See, they didn't give a damn about 50% of Cleveland's children going hungry at night. They don't care about unemployment. They don't care about homelessness. You have to pledge your soul, not to what is in the best interest of your district. You got to pledge allegiance to Israel, to the right-wing Netanyahu government of Israel. Sisters and brothers, that is wrong. And you can replace AIPAC and DMFI with NRA or any other dark money group. No person running in the United States of America should sell out their soul to another group. I don't care who they are, over the interests of your constituents. It started in Ohio 11th. And I am so glad that NAPAN, other groups, big up to Jewish Voices for Peace, the uncommitted movement is shaking things up. See, you know why? Because it's been bloodshed. See, what a difference 2 years makes. Because had I had this kind of support in 2021 and 2022, I would be in that Congress right now today. But it is happening right now. And we must not relent against hatred and bigotry, no matter how it forms itself. The people of Palestine deserve to live a good life. Palestinians, rather, deserve to live a good life, just like the people in the Sudan, the people in the Congo, the people in Haiti, the people in East Palestine, Ohio, that is a majority white, working class, poor community that was poisoned by Norfolk Sutherland. The reason why I'm saying this, sisters and brothers and family and friends, I'm gonna end this thing because I know we got a panel, is because what happens over here happens over there. You know why these grifting politicians don't give a damn about what's happening in the Gaza? Because they don't give a damn about homelessness here. They don't give a damn about hungry kids over here. They don't give a damn about crime and violence over here. See, what happens over here happens over there. So babies not eating over there don't matter to them because they don't care about the babies who can't eat in Cleveland or in Chicago or in LA or in wherever, name your place. They don't care. That is what this boils down to. And what we have to do as a movement is to get people to connect the dots. That it does matter that our tax dollars are going over there to fund war and famine and death and destruction. And there are international laws and American laws against what we are doing right now. We are complicit in the bloodshed and nobody's going to be able to escape it. So this is very personal to me, as you all can, I'm giving the requisite energy. Painful to have people come at you because you standing up for justice. The same people who loved you 2 years ago, now they hate you now. And just because they got a black face on the other side, see, black faces in high places may not necessarily serve the black community or any other community. This is an attack on communities primarily of color. And not only that, what happens over here or happens over there happens over here. What happens to the black community happens to all. There's a liberation struggle rooted in this. And there's a synergy between the black liberation struggle and the Palestinian struggle for human rights and self-determination. And but by the grace of God, that could be any of us or the people that we love over in the Gaza. And that is why we got to stand up and say, not on our watch will we continue to let groups like AIPAC and DMFI come into our communities and do whatever they want at the expense of the people of the United States of America. Even if we wanted to look at this from just a not even a selfish, but a self-interested view. It is no doubt that what happened on October the 7th was tragic and wrong. But those of us who are standing up for Palestinian rights will say that every single time. But the people who only care about what happened on October 7th and what Hamas did was wrong, attacking civilians, will not say the same. So I'm going to stop right there, Sister Catherine, because, baby, I got a whole bunch more to say about this. And just one more point, although I'm glad that the coalitions are formed, I wish people had the same intestinal fortitude when I was running in 21 and 22. Didn't have it.
Well, the day isn't over, and nobody preaches like you do. But I'm so glad you mentioned two things that I think are particularly important to me. The link between what we're doing in Gaza and the Sudan and Haiti and other places, and the horrible things that we're doing to people of color and people who are poor in this country. And those are links that have to be made. But you also talked about something that I think is critically important to talk about, and it's a perfect transition to Linda Sarsour, which is this faux charge of anti-Semitism. I mean, let's remember that the ADL calls JVP an anti-Semitic group, right? People I know, I'm Jewish, call me anti-Semitic. It doesn't seem to be very rational, but we don't seem to be living in a very rational time. But I know, Linda Sarsour, that it is particularly painful when Muslim politicians, Muslim activists who are just fighting for the just world that we're all fighting for are called anti-Semitic, and these particularly poisonous attacks are directed at you. So I'd like you to tell us, again, from your own experience, what it's like to have those attacks directed at you, how it chills speech, what it's been like, particularly since October 7th, for you and also for Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar and many Muslim American and African and Arab American activists across the country who are trying to continue to speak out, even as they're maligned.
Thank you so much, Catherine and George, Naipan, Nancy, of course, my dear sisters, Beth and Nina, and of course, my dear friend, AOC. I feel really blessed and honored just to be here in space with people who I trust, I respect, I admire, and people who are really putting themselves on the line. And I will say that, today, as many of you know, is Eid al-Fitr. It's the end of the culmination of the month of Ramadan. And as you know, it hasn't been a very festive Eid for all of us. It's been great to be in community and be in healing spaces. Our communities are in mourning. We are in perpetual grief every day. We are also in perpetual anxiety, as we know that there is a looming date to enter Rafah, which is the southernmost part of Gaza, where 1.5 million Palestinians are sheltering here. Over 700,000 of those 1.5 million people are children. We have seen the devastation at the hands of the state of Israel, funded by the United States government and covered up by members of Congress and others who are on both sides of the aisle, taking money from groups like AIPAC. And what's important, as you all know, we started a recent coalition called Reject AIPAC. And we want to be clear that in our mission statement, we say AIPAC because AIPAC is the most well-known pro-Israel toxic lobby organization. But these people are a lot smarter than you think they are. They have affiliated PACs and aligned PACs across the country, including Democratic Majority for Israel. As my immigrant father would say, I was born at night, but it wasn't last night. So they think that they can just start PACs across the country because they know how toxic they have already become, so that they can funnel pro-Israel money to politicians across this country and think we're not going to know about it. So for me, it's AIPAC, it's the Democratic Majority for Israel. And also here in New York, it's something called the Solidarity PAC. I don't know how stupid we are in the progressive left that we didn't think of that name, that nobody in the progressive left thought to have the Solidarity PAC, but apparently the AIPAC guys figured it out. So now there's another PAC just specifically working in New York State on the local level. They're going as local can be. So they're not just going on the federal level. They're really trying to target and manipulate our state legislators and others in this direction. And as you said, Catherine, one of the things I'll say to people all the time is that I'm Palestinian. I don't have to say anything. I don't have to do anything. I am controversial. I am already to people like AIPAC. We are already targets as communities just for the virtue of existing as Palestinians and being in part of the quest for the liberation of the Palestinian people. That's all we got to do to become to get the ire of the AIPAC type folks. And I agree with AOC. I'm from Brooklyn, and I agree with Senator Nina Turner that time is long gone. I need the people to step up and do Brooklyn style. Like, we got to go head up with AIPAC. I'm not afraid of AIPAC. I'm not afraid of their affiliated PACs. I'm not afraid of the people. And as Nina said, for a long time, the movement has tried to be under the radar because people are so afraid of saying what needs to be said because they're worried about being called anti-Semitic. Call me what you want, whatever you want, knock yourself out. but I will not waver from standing up for justice. Most often, if you know AIPAC and groups like AIPAC and those affiliated with AIPACs and those who are so unequivocally supportive of Israel, guess what? They've never showed up for us on healthcare. They haven't showed up for us for Black lives. They haven't shown up for immigrants and refugees. They are not our allies. They are not our friends. So there is no reason for us to be walking around trying to figure out on this one issue how we don't want to be controversial or complicated. If you have a moral compass on any issue, then it has to be every issue. And the issue of Palestine is very clear to me. A lot of folks are worried about opportunities. They're worried about funding. They're worried about all these superficial things. But there has to come a time in every generation where a few people say, not me, I'm not going to be afraid. Take everything from me. Take the resources, take the opportunities. And I promise you that if you're doing the right thing, a way will be open for you. When doors close, doors will be open. People like AIPAC type folks and those who support AIPAC, they've been trying to take me out for the last 15 years, and I'm still here and I'm still organizing and I'm still blessed in every single way. I feel grateful for the work that I have been able to do and the friends that I have been able to make, but also the power we've been able to build. That's what they're afraid of. They don't want to see Black, Palestinian, Jewish solidarity. They don't want to see that. So what they do is they try to divide us. And what we're witnessing across the country is back to something that Senator Nina Turner, because you got to understand, my friends, you got to be crystal clear. Betty McCollum has positions that are pro-Palestinian. So does people like Mark Pecan from Wisconsin. But you notice that when they want to say the Hamas squad, they don't add Betty McCollum. They don't add Mark Pecan. They only add the Black women and the women of color. And that's the thing that we have to understand. They add the one Black man that has the courage to stand up against his colleagues to say something even remotely supportive of Palestine. So this is not just about unequivocally pro-Israel. This is about racism. It's playing out in our politics, right in our faces. Like it's right there. Like I see it every day. When I think about the Cori Bushes of the world and the Summer Lees of the world and the types of money that they're putting on those campaigns, one of the reasons why Rashida is in a semi-safe place, because I'm an organizer, I got to tell you what to do before I keep the complaining about who AIPAC, because I feel like we're all on the same page. AIPAC is toxic. Rashida raised a lot of money. And of course, this is all public information. And our community has filled her coffers with a lot of money. And so when she was going to get opposition, the coffers were too full. And so there wasn't really competition for someone like Rashida. But a lot of our Black sisters aren't able to raise the same amount of money. And so when they see that your coffers ain't full, then they see that opening. So what they did in a place like in Missouri, as you know, there was a Black politician who got up and said he wanted to run for the United States Senate. So they went to him and said, hey, why don't you drop out of the race and come on over here? We're going to help you to go run against Cori. So they took a Black man and put him up against the Black woman and dividing the Black vote, dividing the Black community. It is beyond outrageous every single time that we allow this to do this. It happened in Senator Nina Turner's race for Congress in Ohio. Like this thing plays out and we allow it to get played over and over and over again. And I think we did get to the time, and you're right, Nina, it is late and it feels late to me, but I always say better late than never. And you know what? And sometimes I always say that, you know, God chooses its best warriors. And thank God he chose you, Senator Nina, because you're still here. Because somebody else would have been through what you've been through and would have said, I don't want nothing to do with this movement. I'm going to go find me some other thing to do and leave all y'all behind. But you're still here with us. So we have disappointed you and disappointed many Black and people of color candidates and electeds across the country. But no more. No more. We are going to stand up. We're going to organize. And the thing that I want to remind progressives all the time, and I'm tired of this conversation about how we don't have money. We got plenty of money. I remember March 2016, Senator Bernie Sanders raised $53 million in 1 month, the month of March. Guess what? He ran a campaign on an average of a $27 donation. He didn't do no big dinners. He didn't do nothing fancy. He wasn't at Radio City Music Hall with all the past presidents. He raised money off of the people. So this idea that we can't compete with AIPAC is nonsense. They just keep feeding us that in the movement. It's actually our own people that feed us that. And I'm tired of it. Money's everywhere in our community. If we're able to organize our neighbors, just our family members and say, listen, we got a candidate like Cori Bush. You know what I need you to do for the next few months? I need you to put $100 a month for the next 4 months to make sure that Cori Bush. And guess what? If all of us did that, if we had 5 people from each of our families that was able to do that, Cori Bush will win her race. And what I'm in the business of history making. This is what I do for a living. Everything that I want to be a part of is about leaving a legacy. My legacy on my tombstone, I want you all to be there and witness it. And hopefully you all are still around when I'm not here anymore. I want my tombstone to say that I was part of the story that put AIPAC in the dustbins of history, that we put the pro-Israel lobby in the dustbins of history. That's what we're going to do. And we're going to start that work this year in 2024. Let's focus, my friends. I see a lot of people in the comments. People are debating Joe Biden, and Joe Biden's bad, and Donald Trump. They're all bad, my friends, right? And of course, there's different, conversations we could have for another day, and NIPAN has to have a whole other conversation about that. But I tell people, redirect your energy right now. Redirect your outrage right now. Your outrage needs to be redirected at sending the entire squad back to Congress. Because even if one of those members of the squad loses their race, the message that we send out is that standing up for Palestinians, standing up for justice is a political liability. And that is what we don't want. So you got to send the whole squad back to Congress. And then hold on, because we got more work to do in 2026. Let me tell you where I'm going to be in 2026, because I'm going to say it here and I don't care who reports about this. 2026, I'm leaving every job that I have. I'm not going to organize anything in nowhere. I'm going to be in the Bronx. And we're going to organize 2026, number one, to take out members of Congress who have been unequivocally Democrats. I'm talking, forget the Republicans, I'm talking Democrats, who have been unequivocally pro-Israel without any, even a bit of humanity for the Palestinian people. And I will leave every job. I will knock every door to take out people like Congressman Richie Torres and folks like him who think that the only way that he can stay in office is to ignore his constituents, one of the poorest districts in the country, so he could cape for the state of Israel. Imagine you being a young, Black, Latino, gay man who is caping for a state, a nation state, and ignoring the actual issues that are in your district that your constituents are fighting for every single day. There is so much more work to do. So the first task that we have to make AIPAC irrelevant, because we're all on the same page that they're toxic, is number one, 2024, send the entire squad back to Congress. That's what you got to do. That's your job. That is our responsibility. And that means that New Yorkers might have to take themselves to Pittsburgh. That might mean that New Yorkers from upstate got to come down and knock on doors for Jamaal Bowman. That we need to go, just like we went to Ferguson and we went to support the protesters of Ferguson. Then you got to get up and go support Cori Bush and go knock on some doors. And then in 2026, we got to expand the squad. Find 10 districts across the country that we could put all our energy in. We got to be as smart as our opposition. Our opposition is calculated. They're focused. They don't move around. And they're also not divided on issues. They may not like each other sometimes. They have differences amongst their organizations. For those of us who are in this, we know that. But let me tell you something, my friends. When it comes to defending the state of Israel, they will line up. They will be best friends. They will put all their resources together. And that's what we got to do as a movement. We got to consolidate our power, consolidate our resources, consolidate our money, and we got to defend our champions. And for once and for all, my friends, we cannot just be talkers. We cannot just be saying what needs to be said. And I know that it's important to say what needs to be said, but you got to put your money and your actions where your mouth is. And I'm telling you right now that I've been working on this for the last 7 months before even the October 7th attacks happened. We have to send the squad back to Congress, because the squad was standing up for Palestine before October 7th. Let's just be clear about that. This wasn't some new thing that they were doing. They just doubled and tripled and quadrupled down over the course of the last 6 months, almost now into the 7th month. And the last thing that I'll say, because this is important too, because Senator Nina Turner got me fired up. Our people, and I'm talking about our movements, I watch a lot of things online, and I don't like to get into drama online because I don't have time for that. A lot of people in the movement have time. I don't have time. We have to remember who your friends are and redirect your energy. The squad is not perfect. These are human beings that are going to disappoint you every once in a while. And they're going to use a word you don't like. And they might not use the word you wanted them to use the first month or the second month, the third month. Take leadership from Palestinians. Look, AOC, she's not perfect, but guess what? She's my ally. She's my friend. I need her in Congress. And I don't need you to weaken her and start attacking her online because you sometimes don't agree with what AOC said, or sometimes you don't agree with what Ilhan said. This is not, right now, that is not the thing, my friends. I want you to know that as a Palestinian-American, that does not help the cause. It does not help the liberation of the Palestinian people. And if you think you're doing me a favor, you are not. Redirect your energy at those who are opposed to your values, opposed to the things that you believe in, who are opposed to justice, people who are literally get up every day to work against the things that you believe in. Those, my friends, that's the opposition. The squad is an imperfect group of people who love our people, who do their best that they can because they're humans. Because guess what? Beth isn't perfect. Senator Nina ain't perfect. I'm not perfect. NIPAN's not perfect. But guess what? We're doing the best that we can in the circumstances in which we are organizing in. So I just hope that you're going to join NIPAN and they're going to give you things to do and action items. Don't just sit around and talk about it and come to the webinar. I hope to see you on the streets of the Bronx, on the streets of Riverside, knocking doors for Jamaal Bowman, because that is what we need right now. You got a couple of extra dollars in your pocket. I'm sure NIPAN would like $1 or $2, but I hope that at least for now, Jamaal needs your money. Cori Bush needs your money. Summer Lee needs your money. AIPAC has threatened $100 million. And this is what I will say to you. If you send the entire squad back to Congress competing with $100 million, my friends, and you talk about people power, there will be no longer the talk of people power. You will be demonstrating people power. That our people power can go up against $100 million, and you could send 2 Black women and a Black man who are literally under attack right now back to Congress. That is called solidarity. That is called people power. And that is the beginnings of sending AIPAC into the dustbins of history. And I know that we can do it. I believe in our movement. We just got to stay focused, redirect our outrage at this administration. You want your outrage at the top, so am I, my friends. Trust me. Thank God I live in New York, and I could vote whatever way I want, and it ain't gonna matter. But other people live other places, and their votes are gonna matter. But you know what I'm telling my people who are mad in Michigan, mad in Wisconsin, mad in Pennsylvania, mad in lots of other places? Redirect your energy, my friends, down the ballot. Because regardless of who goes to the White House, if you have a Democratic majority House, you have a Democratic majority Senate. If it's crazy fascist Donald Trump, you block him on every major legislation that moves forward if you have a Democratic majority House. If it's Joe Biden, then he has no excuse to not push for progressive legislation and say, well, I didn't have the House, or I didn't have enough people in the Senate, and I had the Kristen Cinemas, and I had the Joe Mansions. There will be no excuses, my friends. So our job as voters, as organizers, is to leave no excuses on the table for the Democrats and to block the Republicans if that is what happens in November. Because I will say this, Joe Biden still needs to earn the votes of a lot of voters in this country. So that ball is not in my court. It is not in the court of Muslim Americans, Palestinian-Americans, Arab Americans who are outraged at the literal massacre and slaughter of their people, not just in Gaza, but in Lebanon and in Syria and in Yemen. I mean, the thing has spread, as you know. Joe Biden still has to earn our votes, but that doesn't mean that we can't do the work in the meantime and make sure the squad goes back to Congress and we do have a Democratic majority House.
Linda, I just love what you just said. And I wish there were 300,000 people on this call who could hear what you just said. So that brings me to something that disturbs me all the time. I'm old. I work with a lot of young peace activists, and a lot of them tell me that they are done. It's going to be painful to hear what I'm about to. I probably should put out a trigger warning. They tell me they're done with electoral politics, okay? And I try to say things to them like what you just said, because they're not understanding that we have to have electoral politics. I mean, the great civil rights movement of the 1960s, when I grew up, had everything, right? They had civil disobedience, they had marching in the street, and they had electoral politics. You've got to have everything. So, back to you, Beth, when people, and I presume you hear this too, I mean, you guys do so much great organizing and demonstrating on the streets. When you hear people say that electoral politics are not worth it anymore, there's nothing that can be achieved with them, what do you say in response to that?
The reason I do this work with JVP Action is because I can only stomach doing this work if I'm doing it from within the movement, right? Like you're never going to see me go do like just lobbying. No. But when you're doing it from part of a genuine grassroots movement, when you're doing it as part of liberation movements, then you see this advocacy work, the pressure, as just one tactic of many, many, many. I don't love I hate electoral politics. It's my job. It's what I do. I hate it. It's just, I mean, Congress is the worst. But I do it because it's one tool in a toolbox. And this is the tool that I know how to wield and I know how to use. And so that's where my role is, right? Like, I am a white Jewish American and I know where my skill set is and I know where my identity is. I know where my privilege is. And for me, this is where I can make my difference in like my corner of a much, 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 much bigger global movement. And for JVP and for JVP Action and for all of us in these movements, there's an inside game, there's an outside game. There are games that straddle the inside and the outside. One story that I like to tell a lot that for me feels like the epitome of why we need kind of all these different tactics is on October 18th, when this was all just, this nightmare was beginning, and we saw that this was a genocide that was playing out, and we were a couple weeks out of the horrible attacks of October 7th. That was the day that several Jewish groups, JVP, if not now other groups, planned a sit-in the Cannon House Rotunda in DC, where about 500 activists got arrested. Okay, so that was happening. And while that was happening, the media attention was going, and it was a massive moment of kind of interrupting this narrative where we'd just seen this, every headline was saying this nonsense that all American Jews stood with Israel. Like, that was what everyone was saying. And that was not true. And so this big protest was to say, hey, Congress, media, pay attention. In fact, that is not what all American Jewish people think. We want to see a ceasefire. We want to see stop arming Israel. We want to see Palestinian human rights. We want an end to this. We want a future in which people can actually live in safety and in freedom. But I was not at that sit-in. I was running around the Hill like a mad woman, having meetings with members of Congress to talk with them about what it was that the protesters were demanding. And when we started that day, I couldn't get a meeting. People didn't want to meet with us. And then the protests kicked off and the media started covering the protest. And all of a sudden, I couldn't run fast enough to make it to the meetings because people wanted to meet with us. They wanted to understand what was going on. All this attention is happening. There's all these activists that are protesting outside. That is the epitome of why we need it all. You can never just assume that going in, just voting, that's not enough. Just meeting with your member of Congress, that's not enough. Just protesting in the street, that's not enough. But when you combine all these things together and more, there's so many more tactics that I didn't even just name, that's when we can start to make change. When you have people, like the last 6 months, I think sometimes we can lose sight of it. We have had people in the streets pretty much every single day for half a year. The energy has not gone down. The energy has stayed up because people are furious. And Americans we don't want to see this. This is our tax dollars, our money being used to kill Palestinians. And for Palestinian Americans, tax dollars being sent to kill their own family members. This is an unbelievable hell that we are living in. And it's clear that everyone here is done with it. They're filling the streets every single day. We've also been flooding members of Congress's offices with calls every single day, letters every single day. The protests have continued. The advocacy work has continued. And that is why we are now getting to the point where you see more and more people that are breaking off. And what Linda just described is exactly what we need. That then needs to be paired with us showing up in the election cycle. Because if we do all that and we get these people to speak out and then they lose, then we missed it. Right. It has to be that the full story is that the movements demanded it. These members of Congress were in Congress representing the movement demands and speaking out for what's morally right. And then they won. And they won in a landslide. And that's how we tell the story that the political calculus has shifted in this country. And that in fact, the path of least resistance for politicians, the way to get elected again is to stand up for Palestinian rights. That's what's popular. That's what's going to get you reelected. Because there are some members of Congress who will do what is morally right every time. But most members of Congress will do what they think is going to get them reelected every time. And so that's part of what we have to do. I wish that weren't the case, but we have to be realistic about it too. And so it has to be that this is the full thing. The movement demanded it. We used all these tactics, these organizing tools at our disposal to get our members of Congress, to get our politicians to speak out, to do what's right. And then we showed up for them and they got reelected. And that is how then in 2026, like Linda said, we come back and we grow. This time we keep the ground we've gained. Next time we come back and we get bigger. And that's how we get to the point where we have actual governing power. That's how we get to the point where we are actually conditioning, cutting, withholding, ending this unconditional flow of military funding and weapons that is currently going to support what Israel is doing. That is when we actually are balancing out the power that AIPAC had built over decades. It's cracking, but it's not cracked. And we have to be willing to do it all. I will say also, people, like, find your role. Like, if you really can't stomach knocking on a door, you stay in the streets, you call instead. Like, find your role and do it all. But we as movements have to cover all the ground. We have to do everything, and we can't cede any space.
I mean, I had never heard what you just said before, that when you were initially lobbying on Capitol Hill, you couldn't get people to meet with you, and it was the protests that started opening those doors. I mean, that shows the symbiosis of demonstrations and electoral work. And you're right, we have to do everything. Now, Preacher Turner is going to tell us more about how we can convince people to keep on pressing the electoral buttons, I hope. What do you say to people, Nina, when they say that there's no point in electoral work anymore? You're muted.
I want to yield my spot to my dear sister Linda. I saw in the chat she said she has to go soon, so I'm going to yield my place to her.
Thank you, Senator Nina. I'm actually going to yield my time back to you. I just want to say thank you to NIPAN and thank you to Beth and all of our friends in the Reject AIPAC Coalition and the incredible organizers across the country who have not let this country operate business as usual. There is no more business as usual, and this generation has witnessed a genocide. We have watched the live stream for the last 6 months of an actual genocide funded by our taxpayer dollars. The children of Gaza are counting on you. They want a different future. They want an opportunity. They just given a little bit, just give the children of Gaza some sort of light to see a future of democracy, a future where they can attain education, where they can travel, where they can just somehow get to their dreams and aspirations. And so that they no longer have to live this nightmare, not just of a genocide, but of a siege and living in an open air prison. There's no going back after this genocide to a siege under the Israeli government. We cannot allow that to happen. And I appreciate something that folks said here, that this idea of conditioning/ending military aid to Israel has become a mainstream idea. I don't know if you remember, George, back in the days when we used to say Medicare for all, people thought we were wild. They thought that we were just out of our minds, that everybody was going to get health care. And while we have not yet attained the tangible, which is to have health care for every single citizen and resident of this country, we have made the idea of Medicare for all mainstream. People run on it. People come and ask us for our votes because they support Medicare for all. And there's going to come a day very soon, and it's already here, where people are going to run on ending/conditioning military aid to the state of Israel. So don't let up, my friends. Don't believe things are impossible. Bernie Sanders taught us one thing, that everything's possible. As long as we believe in it and we're willing to fight for it, everything's possible. And I want to be part of a generation that gets to say we did condition/end military aid to Israel, that we were able to elect a Congress that is anti-war, right? That is pro-diplomacy and pro-democracy. And I look forward to doing all that work with all of you. So thank you very much. And Eid Mubarak to those who are celebrating today.
Thank you so much. I love how forward-looking all of you are. I mean, AOC began by being forward-looking, and instead of our focusing on all the terrible things AIPAC does, we're talking about how to make things better, and you're making me more hopeful. So just back to you, Nina. Do you have an answer when people say there's no point in participating in electoral politics anymore?
Yeah, first of all, I acknowledge their frustration. I tell them, I want you to go vote, even mad as hell. Just show up. And even if you skip certain segments of the ballot, you have to understand that the local nature of politics is vitally important. There are health and human services levies on that ballot. There are judges on that ballot. There are other things on the ballot besides the Congress and the president. And so oftentimes politicians or politician types ignore the pain and the suffering that people are feeling. If people do not feel in their lived experience that things are getting much better for them, it doesn't matter what the Dow Jones says, because the Wall Street is working. It's working for the ultra wealthy in this country, but it ain't working for Big Mama and Big Papa down the way and around the corner. And so it is easy for people to get very frustrated and deflated, even in some of the best times. This time, not only are people dealing with the residue of a pandemic, they're dealing with the full-on onslaught, slaughter, genocide in the Gaza, and people are really feeling, I think, more hopeless than they have in a very long time. And so it is important that they have to go vote. It is the least that they can do. And I love how Sister Beth, voting is only one part of the process. It's not the only part of the process. So Sister Catherine, I tell them, go vote. I'm mad. You mad as hell? Hell, I'm mad as hell too. Let's just go. We going in there and we mad as hell. But you have to participate in the process, because the other side, whatever the other side is going to participate in the process as well. So you sitting back in a representative democracy saying you're not going to participate cedes that territory to the other side automatically. They don't even have to work for it, because ultimately one of their tactics is to get people so deflated and so frustrated and so outraged that they refuse to even move. And the beautiful part about uncommitted, let's talk about a real live example happening in real time. The beauty of uncommitted is it said to folks, go and vote, even though you mad as hell. I want to use Wisconsin as an example. Michigan got that party started, baby. So shout out to Michigan, did that thing. But by the time we got to Wisconsin, it had already been cemented that Joe Biden was the nominee. Now, we knew that was going to happen anyway. I want to put all that stuff in the parking lot. But it was very clear. He had the delegates that he needed. What Wisconsin did is, now it takes a lot for Democrats to get out of their bed and say, I'm going to vote uninstructed anyhow. See, that is a positive breakthrough that people will still go out to send that message. We must continue to get up, because if the least we can do, the least you can do, people in Gaza living in famine, the ones who are still alive, we got over 30,000 that we can count. I bet you it's upwards of 40, 50,000. See, there's some bodies that are missing that we can't even count. If those folks are over there suffering to that magnitude, and you mean to tell me over here in the United States, we can't even at least go vote? What I say historically from the Black lens is that ancestors fought, and some people literally died, and some lived and lost their livelihood because they dared to vote, thrown in jail and beaten because they dared to vote, called into the boss's office saying, don't get no big ideas. N-word, don't get no big ideas. If you go vote, you're going to lose your job. See, so there are other sacrifices that have been made that's deeper than I'm mad and I don't like nobody on the ballot, so therefore I'm not going to go vote. No, go in and write somebody in if you have to, but go and vote. And the localized nature of what is on that ballot is important. I know that the light shines brightly on the Congress and who's running for president, but who your judges are matters. Local ballot initiatives matter. State ballot initiatives matter. So you got to go out there and vote. We have absolutely no excuse to go and vote in the United States of America, even at the hands of Republican-led legislatures and governors' mansions and Secretary of State's offices that are making it increasingly harder. We still have to do all that we can to get out there and vote anyhow. So go, because politics is working. Politics gonna work you even if you don't work it. So there's no way to not be involved in a so-called representative democracy. And I call it so-called because big money, one of the things we absolutely have to do is to get big money's influence out of politics.
Right. It's in everything, right? And I like to say, I make myself a real bore with kids, and I like to say, go look up Fannie Lou Hamer, because she lost everything. She was beaten, and she would not stop. And that is what we all have to do, and we have much easier lives than she did.
Relatively speaking, absolutely.
So we had Congressman Bowman there for a second, but he's gone away. And while we're waiting for him to get back, Beth, could you just, because you mentioned strategies, and I think as many concrete strategies as we can give people, the better off we're going to be, because we want people to, we don't want this to just be a Zoom meeting. We want people to come from this meeting and think, these are the things I can do. These are the people I can do them with. Because I think a lot of people, based on the chat, and based on texts I'm getting, are very energized and they love you guys. But I want to translate that into specific things that they can do. So can you suggest some of those things, Beth? To me, I'm sure you can. You're muted.
Oh, great. Said I got too excited and I was like, yes, I can. Someone just put some of them in the chat, actually. Yeah, I mean, listen, there is so much that people can do right now that all fits under, like, if you're just kind of like, I just want to screw over AIPAC, there's like a million things you can do. If you're like, all I want to do is work toward a ceasefire, same things. They're all the same things. They're all working toward the same thing. So one thing I'll say, because we're here in New York and because the congressman is somewhere on the call, I think, phone bank for Jamaal Bowman. Donate to Jamaal Bowman. JVP Action just announced our endorsement of Congressman Bowman today. We're so excited and thrilled to have done so. And I think that it looks like in the chat, Jamaal Bowman's Mobilize is up. So go check it out. See what you can sign up for. If you can't phone bank tomorrow, phone bank the next day. We're part of a group called Juice for Jamaal that's going to be doing phone banking for Jamaal every Thursday evening, starting tomorrow until the election. And there are going to be more opportunities to canvass, to get out there. I live in Brooklyn, but I am heading to Westchester. I'm heading to the Bronx to knock some doors. We're going to be making calls. You can donate. We heard from Congressman Ocasio-Cortez. We heard from Linda specifically about how we need to show up for that race. That's one thing you can do. Another thing you can do is Summer Lee. If you want to go to Pittsburgh, if you want to make calls for her, I can grab it. I apologize. I didn't send it in advance because I didn't know we were going to be, this really did turn into a forward-facing organizing call, but I can drop phone banks for her up until the election as well. And we need to be calling voters, because one of the things that can happen is that people can get complacent and think that someone is safe, but we cannot take anything for granted. And so you can be making calls for her from New York as well if you can't make your way to Pittsburgh. But another thing you can do, and I think that there is a link to this in the chat here under Jewish Voice for Peace Action, is that you can make calls to your members of Congress's office. And one thing I want to say, because I would not be a good political director if I didn't say it, is that Congress is very likely about to bring back for another vote the $14 billion supplemental to the Israeli government that President Biden was pushing for. We don't know when, but Speaker Johnson is likely to bring it in the coming week or two. That is an additional $14 billion. Just like, let that sit for a minute. Last year, we were talking about how insane it was that we were sending $3.8 billion a year to Israel. Now they want to send an additional $14 billion. We've talked about the ways that the tide is turning. We've talked about the ways that the political calculus is shifting, but that depends on us not getting complacent and us not leaning back. Right now is the time to call your member. Well, not right now because it's 8:30 p.m., but tomorrow at 9 a.m. is the time for you to pick up the phone and call your member of Congress's office and say, vote no on any more military funding to Israel, and actively work to stop the flow of weapons that are going to Israel. Because we saw what happened at Al-Shifa Hospital. We saw what happened to the 7 humanitarian aid workers who worked for World Central Kitchen. We are sending them the weapons that are doing that. We are sending them the warplanes that are dropping that. And AIPAC is on the Hill lobbying for it. AIPAC is in these offices talking to these members of Congress saying, send an additional $14 billion or we're going to do to you what we did to Andy Levin. We're going to come to you with the $100 million that we're pushing for. So you can phone bank, you can call your member of Congress, and also keep showing up in the streets. Keep showing up. The protests are still happening and we need to be showing up in force. They're happening. If you're in New York, there is a protest happening somewhere near you right now. And so we can, stay on IPAN's list, sign up for JVP's list, and you will be kept informed about where all those protests are happening. So those are just a couple of the ways that you can get involved now.
And even in Long Island, there are protests, as amazing as that may seem. We have some interesting questions, and one of them is from Nia Adams, who's a terrific activist out here on Long Island. Before we get to Congressman Bowman, if Congressman Bowman doesn't mind, I'm just going to ask this question of Nina.
He just came in.
Yeah. Let me just ask this question of Nina, and then we'll get to Congressman Bowman. How would you advise pathways to strengthening ties between Black and Palestinian liberation so that we can finally demystify the lie of anti-Semitism and make those connections that you were talking about?
I mean, people in the Middle East in general are Semitic people. So just even to co-opt another word is baffling to me, but that's a lecture for another time. Just reminding people of that history, the liberation struggle, and I touched on it a little bit, that there's a similarity between the Black liberation struggle and the Palestinian liberation struggle. I remember I could hear Dr. Jim Zogby's storytelling in my ear right now, to give by way of examples, that when Reverend Jesse Jackson ran in the 80s, he was the first presidential candidate, again, a Black man, the first presidential candidate to bring Arab American people into a presidential campaign in a meaningful way. That is vitally important. And I wish Dr. Zogby, he can definitely tell the story better than I can, because there was a time, and AIPAC is still trying to make that so, but there was really a time where presidential candidates would not speak openly about the aggression and the things that were happening to Arab American people. And you had Reverend Jesse Jackson in the 80s being such a trailblazer and bringing that community full frontal, not treating them as a side chick, not treating them as an afterthought, full frontal into a presidential campaign. So Catherine, the ties that bind the Palestinian community and the African-American community are even deeper than the 1980s, but I wanted to give something that was a more of a modern time example. As I said in my earlier remarks, what happens over there happens over here, and what happens over here happens over there. And it is vitally important. The African-American community is uniquely positioned. We're not the only community positioned, but we are uniquely positioned because of the way that my ancestors were traded in this country like chattel, and the way that descendants of enslaved people have had to fight for liberation. It makes the Black community uniquely positioned to be a strong moral voice on this particular issue because of that experience. Not the only group, but uniquely positioned because of that experience. And if you look at social movements in the United States of America, even across the world, you will hear groups talk about, they looked at the civil rights movement, they looked at the abolitionist movement as the North Star on how to get liberation, freedom, and justice. And that is what we must do. We are a reflection of those freedom fighters that have gone before us. And there are some of those freedom fighters who are still walking this earth right now, who were in those fights, or their mothers and their fathers were in those fights. We must personify that collective energy to understand that we cannot sit idly by and continue to be complicit in the genocide and the relentless collective punishment that is happening to Palestinian people, that nexus must be drawn. And we are the modern day freedom fighters that have to push for not only policy changes in this country, but when we fight against this, we're fighting against all kinds of repression and aggression and war making across the entire world.
Thank you so much. And we have to transition quickly to Congressman Bowman, because I gather that he may be losing phone battery power. Congressman, can I just, do I have time to quickly introduce you, or do you want to start talking? Do you have a moment for me to?
No, I'm gonna introduce myself.
Okay. You'll do it much better than I would, I'm sure.
I don't know about that. Peace and love, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. It's great to follow my sister, Nina Turner. Thank you, Sister Turner, for your relentless, urgent fighting in this particular moment, but every moment, as not only we try to save our democracy, but we try to save our humanity, because that's what is at stake right now. This is not just about human rights. This is about our humanity. We are a United States government supporting a group like AIPAC who's supporting an individual like Netanyahu, who is openly committing a genocide right in front of our faces with bombs, with missiles, and with starvation. And we know this is a genocide because they told us what they were going to do right after October 7th. They said they are human animals. They said there are no innocent civilians. They said, remember what Amalek did to you. They said cut off food, cut off water, cut off electricity. They used white phosphorus. They bombed one part of Gaza, moved them to the other, and then bombed that part. It is clearly happening in front of our faces. And the American people are not stupid. We're organized and we are speaking out. Shout out to Beth and JVP on the call and so many others for your relentless, urgent work. Not just in this moment. Y'all been doing this for years. And I just appreciate y'all. And I'm obviously saddened by the horror. But finally, people are waking up. And people are fighting and people are pushing back. And we signed the ceasefire resolution on October 16th just because it's the right thing to do. Again, they told us what they were going to do. They told us. There's no way I could support an initiative like the BS resolution that came before that acted as if Israel is not responsible for any of this. We got to have honest conversations if we care about the safety of all human life. If we care about all human life, we can't choose one group over another. And so because of my decision to sign on as a co-sponsor of the ceasefire resolution, because of my decision to boycott President Herzog's address, because of my decision to vote against this stupid resolution that said Israel's not an apartheid state, even though we have every human rights organization out there saying the opposite, because of my decision to stand with humanity, AIPAC is coming after me. And they're coming after many of us. But I'm their number one target. You know why? Because we have so many of AIPAC right in my backyard, y'all. They're right here in the district. They're right here in Westchester County. They're in Scarsdale. They're in Rye. They're in White Plains. They're in New Rochelle. They're in Mamaroneck. And they're used to having Congressman Ingle and Nita Lowey as the people governing for them. And now they got a black man in America with knowledge of self who loves humanity governing. And that's how I will always govern. That's how we should be governing. That's what we are called to do. We're not called to just carry water for AIPAC. We're not called for that. We're called to serve the people in my district. Black and brown people in my district have been neglected and left behind for decades. People are being killed in the street. My opponent said he had to go to Israel to see bullet holes and there's kids being shot and killed in Mount Vernon under his watch as county executive. How can he live with himself? Where's the anti-poverty program for my district? Where's the anti-violence program in my district? We have an opioid epidemic. Where's the anti-opioid program in my district? Where's the mental health initiative? He's defunded mental health. He hasn't responded to affordable housing. But after the October 7th attacks, you run over to Israel to pander to an AIPAC lobby that supports right-wing Republicans who support insurrectionists and Donald Trump. This is what this career, corporate, corrupt politician is doing right now in my race. So of course he's raising millions of dollars, and of course they're going to put millions more in the IE because, and I'm going to be very blunt here, and I don't want to get you scared when I say this, because they want to get this nigga out of office. That is what they want to do. They don't use that word, but they might as well use it. They say things like radical. They say things like bombastic. They say things like, you know, they don't like my style. This is all dog whistles for racists. He is partnering with racist Republicans. And AIPAC is a racist organization. We love all humanity. We love Jewish lives. We love Muslim lives. We love Black lives. We love queer lives. We love women. We love Christians, Hindu. We love all people. And if we all govern like that, we wouldn't have the senseless violence destroying our communities that we have all over America and all around the world. And this rise in fascism is freaking dangerous. And it's happening here. And that is what AIPAC is supporting, fascism. And Netanyahu has the nerve to ignore the United States government. He's ignoring the president and doing what he wants. And we're still sending weapons over there. So our movement is about humanity. It's about justice. It's about compassion. It's about love. That's how we fight all the things people claim they want to fight against. They're serious about fighting anti-Semitism. We need a permanent ceasefire now. They're serious about fighting for democracy. We need a permanent ceasefire, humanitarian aid right now. But they're not serious. They only care about power and Western imperialism and hegemony and the military-industrial complex. They're not serious. They're lying to us. And we are in a Wizard of Oz moment where people are realizing the emperor has no clothes. We know the truth now. And now my race is one of the major races where we have to defeat these people. Election day, June 25th, early voting, June 15th. We need all hands on deck, on the phones, on the doors, whatever you can donate, donate. We were just endorsed by JVP Action today, and I'm so proud of that. Finally, it took us a long time, Beth, to get here, but we are here. And now we could tell the truth. And we're telling the truth. And I'll leave you with this quote by Dr. King. I believe that unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final say in reality. And that's what we're talking about. Unarmed truth and unconditional love. Not this archaic, barbaric, binary way of thinking that everybody thinks and governs, us versus them. Get out of here with that. We're all one human race, and we have to govern as such and live as such. So anyway, I'll stop there and I'll answer a couple quick questions before my battery dies.
Okay. I love how fierce you are, Congressman. But I've always said to people, you can't take on a great middle school principal because nobody is tougher or more resourceful than a great.
That's what I'm talking about. Yes, yes, yes.
What they're doing already, I can see, and I love the way you're responding to it. What they're doing is the usual AIPAC playbook of throwing lies at you and branding you with lies and figuring with all the money, they're going to have television ads repeating the lies over and over again. What do you do? I mean, I've seen you do some things already. So what are you doing to fight against that?
We laugh in their freaking faces. That's what we do. Because that's what we have to do. Thank God we've been doing great work on the ground with people, with communities since we've gotten into office. So we build the equity in the community where the people know the lies are the nonsense is crap. They know it. I mean, when I voted against the resolution that came out in the beginning that pretty much only acknowledged the deaths on October 7th and didn't acknowledge anything else, they started running ads in my district against me, trying to get constituents to call my office and force me to quote unquote stand with Israel. And so many Black and brown people in the district that I would run into in the street, they were like, yo, as soon as I saw that ad, I knew it was bullshit. So like already people know what they're about. And so we, thank God, have raised enough money to tell our story. So we're going to be able to tell our story, and we're going to be able to tell the truth about what we've delivered for the district. Not just $1 billion. We're working and governing with community on the issues they care about. Not just this issue, affordable housing, we've been there. Education, we've been there. Workforce development, we've been there. Reducing gun violence, we've been there. And my opponent has been nowhere to be found. Literally just pay to play politics. And so they're going to keep trying, they're going to numb the brain with their horrible commercials. My opponent's first ad is atrocious. Please take a look at it. The problem is they got no heart in what they do. There's no love. It's built on hate and fear. And evil can't win in these circumstances. And so we're going to keep governing with love.
That's great. Thank you so much, Congressman. I have to tell you that every single person who's spoken here today has made us all want to put on our walking shoes, get out of our house, and start knocking on doors. And I would say to everybody on this call, do not just get off of this call. Immediately, we can still give you more money, right, Congressman? You're still willing to take some more money from us, right?
$6,600 is the max. So until you get to that, you can give money, yes.
Okay. Send money. Go up to the district, make phone calls, text, do everything. That we believe, Congressman, that your race is the pivotal race in New York and maybe in the country. And so we have to make sure that we defeat them and send them a message. And we intend to do that.
Hell yeah. Summer's going to win. I think it's next week or the week after. And then we are next and we're going to win. And then Corey's going to win in August. But it's going to take all of us. So yes, come on up and knock on doors. If you can't come knock doors, join the phone bank. We need you on the phones. And we're targeting with this NIPAN group in particular, the river towns, because they are with us. We just need to get them out. That's Hastings on the Hudson. That's Dobbs Ferry. That's Irvington. That's Tarrytown. And then also on the Sound Shore side, Mamaroneck. That's a place where we can absolutely get a lot of votes there and win that area. So appreciate y'all. My phone's gonna die, so I gotta run.
You're amazing, Congressman. Thank you so much for joining us.
Love y'all. Thank you.
Love you. We were just asked if you, Beth, and you, Nina, would like to make like a short closing statement, if that's possible. So maybe I'll go with you, Beth, first, if you want to make a short closing statement.
Oh my God, stop from your phone.
I can try. Wow, yes, I'm taking in everything that I'm realizing there were so many powerful speakers that we just heard from over the course of the last hour and a half. I feel very inspired. I feel like we've just heard from two members of Congress who are really fighting a hard fight for progressive values. And we heard from two incredible activists and organizers who, like I said before, I can't say enough, I have just been admiring for years, and who I'm inspired by. I just want to say that, we've talked a lot about how AIPAC operates, and Nina said it, Linda said it. AIPAC operates like every other big, bad super PAC. They operate like every other big, bad lobby group. They're not actually special. This is the way that corporate interests operate in the US. And for too long, they've been able to operate in a way that has bipartisan support, but that is quickly not becoming the case. And the other thing that is cracking open is that more and more people are getting very clear and aware of something, which is this. AIPAC does not speak for Jewish communities. AIPAC is not a Jewish organization. The Israeli government does not speak for Jewish communities. And the policies of the Israeli government are not about keeping Jewish communities safe. And that cannot be said strongly enough. The way that we fight anti-Semitism is by fighting against racism and white nationalism and all forms of bigotry. And it's about fighting against rising fascism and authoritarianism. And it's about keeping Palestinians safe. That's how we also keep Israelis safe. That's how we keep all of us safe. If we want a future where Israelis and Palestinians can be living in freedom and in safety, it's got to be a ceasefire now. And it's got to be that we stop sending weapons to the Israeli government to carry out a genocide against Palestinians. And if we want Jewish communities in this country to be safe, it needs to be that we are speaking out for Black lives. It needs to be that we are speaking out for Palestinian lives. It needs to be that we're fighting against anti-Muslim racism. All of our lives, all of our safeties, all of our futures are intertwined. Our liberations are intertwined. We know this, but we need to, like we've heard from Nina, like we've heard from Linda, we have to show up to make that happen. And that means fighting against groups like AIPAC that are trying to divide us with hatred. And they're trying to use Republican money to kick out progressives who are trying to fight for that vision in Congress. So we need to be showing up in every way we can, because that's the way that all of us, whatever communities we are a part of, get to be living in a safe future where all of us are actually able to live our fullest, happiest lives is if we are showing up for one another. And so whether that means that you are at the next protest in the streets, or it means that you are driving up to the Bronx to knock doors for Jamaal Bowman, or you are making calls in Pittsburgh for Summer Lee, or you are donating to Cori Bush in St. Louis, or you are calling your member of Congress to tell them to vote no when the supplemental comes up, those are just some of the ways that we need to be showing up for one another. And that is the way that we actually build the world that we want to be seeing for all of our communities. And so just thank you again for having me on tonight.
Thank you, Beth. And we'll close with Nina, if you want to say a few closing words.
Yeah, thanks, Sister Catherine. Thank you, George, and to NIPAN and Jewish Voices for Peace and any of the group that I may be leaving out in terms of hosting this. And thanks to all the people, upwards of 500, I think, in and out, who have been on this call with us tonight. Sister Linda really laid it out in terms of action items. Sister Beth just recapped that. We need time, talent, and treasure. All right, but beyond the choir, see, we're the choir right now. Sometimes the choir got to be edified. Some frenemies probably might be on here too, so to them as well. But the choir has to be edified, and that is really what happened tonight. Congressman Bowman brought the thunder. I was amen and everything that he said. I'm glad he went on ahead and said the N word, because I was going to say that too, because that's just how they treat you, and that is how I felt when I ran in 21 and also in 22. But I want to quote the great novelist James Baldwin, one of the greatest novelists of the 20th century. One of the things that he said many things as he indicted this nation very clearly. He said, not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. Sisters and brothers, that's the moment that we are in right now. It may seem insurmountable, but it's not. For my ancestors to even see freedom, the generation that was able to see it, it seemed insurmountable at the time. And some of them died and never saw it, but they fought for it. It may seem insurmountable right now, but it's not. We are the personification of freedom fighters from all walks of life that have gone before us, that it is our absolute obligation, moral obligation, to stand up in this moment and to say not on our watch. Now, neo-fascism kills you quick. So that's what we have in Donald J. Trump, but neoliberalism kills you slow. And if you are about to run out of oxygen, and that is really the position that we are in right now. And what is happening in the Gaza is a manifestation of the rot and the inhumanity of other human beings towards other human beings in our face in real time. We have been here before because there have been other manifestations of this same type of rot, but we have an opportunity. Not just an obligation, we got an opportunity right here, right now. So as Sister Linda said, some of the first steps that you can take is to save the squad. Put aside all the other things, because see, I want them there to complain about. Hello, somebody. See, I want them there so I can fuss and say what y'all ain't did and what you ain't saying. See, that we want them there. We want them there. For those of us who may have some complaints sometimes, we want them there. So we have got to save the squad, and that is what we can do to show AIPAC. Number two, as this movement continues to build, we got to make it like a scarlet letter to have the endorsement of AIPAC. Hello, somebody, that any politician that has their endorsement will not get our vote. Hello, you heard what Sister Linda say she's going to do in 2026, but it starts right here, right now with protecting Congressman Bowman right now, and protecting the rest of the squad members as we rotate into each and every one of their primaries. My grandmother used to have a saying, I can show you better than I can tell you, baby. We need to show that people power will win out every single time. See, sisters and brothers, our mission is so high, we can't get over it. It's so low, we can't get under it. And it's so wide, we can't get around it. And to the extent that we can win these little battles, ultimately, humanity is going to win out the day. And not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. It may seem daunting, and at times it is, but I do not want you to get weary in well-doing and doing what is necessary to protect the people who 9 times out of 10 are going to be on the right side of most of the issues that we care about is our mission right here, right now in this moment. So time, talent, and treasure. I see the links going up in the chat of how you can donate We got links in the chat about how you can volunteer. Contact NIPAN. They will help you get to help all of the other progressives that are running in this race, and not just progressives in name only. Brother George and Sister Catherine, y'all got to have me come back because I'm going to preach that gospel about people.
I will come back every week.
Only.
Nina,
But I
both of
want to
you.
say also that we can't have our president say, see, got to keep the pressure up on this brother because he's saying one thing and baby he's doing another. Let me say something. Donald J. Trump ain't in the White House right now. It is Joseph R. Biden that is lording over genocide and making all of us complicit through our tax dollars. So our aim has to be on what is happening right now. And that is what the uncommitted movement is about. See, neoliberalism kills you slow. If we only got 24 hours to live, we may have a fighting chance. I get that, because neo-fascism kills you quick. But if we run out of oxygen, baby, ultimately, we're going to run out of oxygen and everybody's going to die. So this is the point. Not everything that's faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it's faced. We are the modern day manifestation of freedom fighters that have gone before us. We can actually not only win in this particular moment in 2024, but we're going to win beyond. A anti-war, pro-peace coalition of people from all faiths, maybe no faith, people from all backgrounds coming together to say, no longer will we stand back. Not only what is happening to Gaza, but what is happening all around the world is a reflection. And we are a hegemonic nation. That means that we can move mountains towards justice and humanity for all people, starting right here, right now, with what is happening to our sisters and brothers in the Gaza. It is untenable, and we cannot stand by. So, hey, neoliberalism, neo-fascism, baby, we fighting against them both. We can do this thing. I'm counting on y'all. Not paying y'all all that. JVP, baby. Y'all making it happen down. I'm telling you, my dear Benjamin might not be on this call, baby, but them women down there that's going into that Congress every single day, fighting that great fight, baby. I'm shouting you out. But to all the activists from all walks of life, it is going to take all of us to move this mountain, baby, but it can't be moved, because we're willing to face this challenge. So come on, y'all. Let's bring it on home.
Thank you so much. You guys give me hope, and I haven't been feeling a lot of that recently. So my dear friend Joe Sackman, a great activist, is going to tell you all what to do. You're up on that mountain with Nina, and he's going to tell you what to do next. Joe, you take it from here.
I don't know what else to say.
You have to tell people
It has all been said. If you haven't clicked a link yet, I don't know what you're waiting for. This is the moment. You can join us with NIPAN. We are at the vanguard. We've been talking about this long before it was something that anyone else was talking about. We knew AIPAC was a toxic organization. It was harming the left. And it has come to this moment now where we are talking about it. It is becoming more acknowledged by the public at large, and that's what's important. We need you to share this information. Not only click these links, we want you to go out there, share these links. When we talk to our friends, our neighbors, our family about what we're doing, they need to get involved too, because Nina said it, it's all of us together. All of us together, we are going to win. We're going to win these primaries. We're going to win these elections. We're going to send a message, because if they defeat one of us, they're going to take that and push it forward. Nina made a comment before. Her races were the blueprints for what they're doing now. We have to stop them here. We have to push them back. We have to end their supremacy. It is up to you and us together to make this happen. Join NIPAN. Go to nipan.org, become a member. Get on our mailing list. We always have actions to share. Make sure you're helping Jamaal. Make sure you're helping AOC. Make sure you're helping everybody you can. Phone banks, whether you're writing postcards or you're donating. Every one of us has a role in this movement. And I'm asking you to take that moment now with us.
And join
not
JVP.
Alone.
Join JVP.
JVP, everyone. There's an organization by you somewhere, and if there isn't, start one. It's not that hard. And I truly believe we're going to win, because we have not stopped. We are there. We're always there. And we want you to be with us when we win. So thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you for the panelists, Linda, Nina, Beth, Jamaal, Alexandria, all of them who come in, all of you spending your time with us tonight to get this done. Thank you and have a good night.
Come all of you good workers, good news to you I'll tell of how the good old Union has come in here to dwell. Which side are you on? 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 My daddy was a miner, now he's in the air and sun, but he'll stick with the Union till every battle's won. Which side are you on? 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 They say in Harlan County there are no neutrals there. You're either with the Union or a thug for J.H. Blair. Which side are you on? 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 Can you stand it? Or tell me how you can. Will you be a lousy scab or will you take a stand? Which side are you on? 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 Don't scab for the bosses, don't listen to their lies. Us poor folk haven't got a chance unless we organize. Which side are you on? Which side are you